Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. And as promised, more Blacklist predictive programming that seems to be exposing everything that is going on right now with Trump. Now, before we get into that, I got a few follow-up items. We have a rule in the chat that no spamming is allowed. So there's a new movement afoot. Well, it's not a very new movement. It's been around since the beginning, since 2013, right around the time we started this channel. It's called the Nobody Died and Nobody Got Hurt movement. And I just won't put up with that because that was one of the biggest ways that they were able to defeat the truth community was to say that nobody died and everything's fake. It's part of the chaos magic. So I had to block a couple people because their only input in the chat was it's all fake and nobody died and nobody got hurt. What you do when you say that and you push that sentiment is you're letting these people off the hook for their crimes because they are legally allowed under the NDAA Act to use propaganda against the American people. It's actually legal for our government to do this to us. So they're complete. If it was all fake and nobody died and there were no victims and was no sex abuse cult and trafficking, if all that was fake, then what are we all doing here? Because that means nobody goes to jail, even if they were just making it all up, because they're protected under the Propaganda Act. So, this is why this sentiment is so damaging. And I even believe that this is all coming from a source to convince people in the truth community that, hey, why even get involved if it's all fake? Not all news is fake. These people were trafficking children. I have the proof. We're going to deep dive today. We're going to get into Casablancas and all these pictures of these young girls that all of them were hanging around Trump, Epstein, and Casablancas. And you do the victims a disservice when you say it's all fake and made up. I'm taking a hard stand on this because I'm seeing this creep back in. The same thing happened. There were multi-million viral truth channels that their claim to fame was everything's fake. Nobody ever dies. And why do you think YouTube throttled those channels and let them have millions and millions of views? Because that's the sentiment they want out there. This is why they gaslight us and show us victims that look like the victims so that we say, oh, they're not really dead. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is the NDAA Act. Look it up. Legal propaganda. Our government is allowed to lie to us and make up stories. And there's nothing we can do about it because we didn't overturn the NDAA Act. Now, let's get into these follow-up items today. I showed you guys. Now, again, it's okay to say one time in the chat or a few times that you don't believe a story's true. I'm talking about someone, every single story we pull up. Oh, that's fake. That's fake. That's fake. That's fake. That's not normal. That's an agenda. That's not organic. All right. So let's keep going here. Now, this is the video that I showed you yesterday from the White House. Make it rain with all the eagles and the cash and the White House and the golden age. Of course, this is a bald eagle, not a golden eagle. So I wanted to correct that. I think yesterday I called it a golden eagle, but you get it. It's the golden age in all the eagles. Well, I looked up the song. I make it rain. I make it rain. I'm not playing the song here for obvious reasons, but I looked the song up and it was a song by Fat Joe. And guess when it released? Here it is, Halloween 2006. So this would be a presidential gaffe, right? Why are you playing a song that released on Halloween? Now, there's a little bit more to this because I read through the comments yesterday, and many of you thought that this might have something to do with the gathering together of the Eagles connected to the Bitcoin announcement, digital currency, the signing of the Genius Act on 7/18, the day this came out, or the day after, the day before this came out. And the whole making it rain was about the crypto market, you thought, feeding the beast. Now they worshiped the dragon and gave authority to the beast, of course, and will worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to fight with him? From Revelation 13:4. Now, others of you linked the gathering of the eagles to a biblical passage, Matthew 24:28. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will be the eagles gathered together. Wow. Now, that passage is often interpreted as a sign of impending judgment or the gathering of the believers around Christ. And the imagery of eagles or vultures, depending on the translation, gathered around the carcass is used to illustrate where spiritual death or consequence is. The gathering together of those who are drawn to it, whether for judgment or for spiritual nourishment. So I think either of these interpretations could apply here. Needless to say, I wanted to look again at the numbers. 179th day of Trump's presidency is what the title was of this AI generated video here. And I found the anti date of the 179th day of the year. Guess what? It's the 5th of July, very close to the 4th of July, which would explain the fireworks in the clip. So these people are definitely into dates and anti dates, mirror dates, we call them. And this post actually posted on the eve of the 199th day of the year with 166 remaining. So this suggests some kind of transition or portal into something new. And that's confirmed because it says we just stepped into Trump's golden age, a portal. Wow. Now, before we get into this blacklist re-upload, I want to do a follow-up on another Trump association he hung around with in the 80s, John Casablancas. And I told you yesterday, I mentioned that he said some really cringy things about young girls before he died in 2013. John Casablancas, elite modeling. Well, I wanted to double down on that and show you guys some proof on all this. We're going to take a minute and get into John Casablancas. Now, understand that it was a known thing that there were creepy, rich, older men hanging around a bunch of young girls under the guise of modeling. This was a thing back in the 80s. And this was before people were really awake to this stuff. They didn't even realize how creepy it was. But there were some accusations made, and all of it was blown off and paid off. But this was like a thing back then. And Casablancas was one of the most outspoken of them all. He was very bold in the things that he talked about these young girls. Trump was hanging around him, yet Trump failed to call the authorities on him. Casablanca's first girlfriend was only 16 years old. He was in his 40s. These were the people that Trump chose to have company with. And not only did he choose to have company with, he sent his own daughter into the jaws of this demon to learn at elite modeling when she was an underage girl. Trump never called the police. He never told anybody what was going on. He just went along with it. Now, for any other person, this standard would be cut and dry. For instance, if I came out years later and You found out that one of my best friends that I knew they were abusing underage girls, and I never called the police and never said anything about it and continue to hang around these people. And in fact, let them work where I work, you would crucify me. But for some reason, that standard doesn't apply to Trump. Teflon Don, they call him. Let's read this article. The man who invented supermodels also took advantage of them. This is from 2017, just after Trump was reelected. And we're going to read through some of these other articles on John Casablancas. Make this a little bit bigger here so you guys can read along with me. Now, Casablancas died in 2013, but we're going to read about this because this gives us a snapshot into the past, gives us more clarity. He was a Casablancas was a racist. He was talking about black models and that Paris didn't want them. Let's read a little bit of this. After completing his study at La Rosey, the prestigious boarding school in Switzerland, John Casablancas, the eventual founder of Elite Models, legendary Lothario behind the careers of Linda, Cindy, and Naomi, returned to Geneva in the late 50s to discover that his dreams of going to college had been dashed. So they're talking about his college. As the Man Who Loved Woman, new documentary by Hubert Warnicki, premiered Friday on Netflix. So apparently there's a documentary on Casablancas. He was like an old Hollywood movie star in some ways, and he worked for Casablancas at Elite in the 90s. From the time he launched Elite New York in 77, Casablancas' aggressive poaching of the world's biggest models made lifelong enemies of rival agents like Eileen Ford, who repeatedly called him sleazy and led to protracted legal drama dubbed the model wars by the tabloids. Now, understand that everybody has a past, right? But to ignore the past and try to say that the past never happened is not what Christians are supposed to do. We're supposed to use our past as a testimony, right? Here's some of the models from Elite from the 80s. There's John Casablancas there. Now, you can chalk this up to cultural norms of the past and things like this. But at the end of the day, we have to come to terms with these were the people that Trump was hanging around. These were the people he chose to be around. And so it appears as though not only did these people have a propensity for young girls, but also Trump did too. And until he admits that and says, okay, that was my past, I've changed, but we're not getting any of that. So here are some of the images. So trigger alert. Some people might be triggered by all this, but it is the truth. Some people are triggered just by the fact that we're talking about negative things about Trump, which to me is cringy on its face. Because why wouldn't you not want to know the truth? Oh, Casey, that's his past. Well, he's not even admitting any of this. Let's get down into some of this other stuff here. In 83, Casablancas really became the bête noire of the fashion industry when he had an affair with one of his models, Stephanie Seymour. She was 16, he was 41. It ended his second marriage. The Continental Playboy Emeritus descended from the likes of Peter Beard. His reputation as amicable, I don't even know what that is, was further enhanced in 99 when an undercover BBC reporter released a scathing documentary that painted the heads of Elite as nothing short of a drug-pushing pimps to their underage models, so they were giving these young girls drugs. Casablancas was not personally implicated, but the stretch of the fallout followed him around like a cheap 80s perfume. Within a year, he had retired, remarried to a 17-year-old contestant. So 16, 17, you're seeing the picture now. He says here, he labeled Naomi Campbell odious, called Heidi Klum a talentless German sausage, and dismissed Giselle as a monster of selfishness. The picture you get here is misogyny. And we're not just talking masculinity. We're not just talking being a man. We're talking straight up misogyny. Now, I'm not the type to side with the left on this kind of thing, but this is over the top, you guys. This is over the top. So this guy pretty much said whatever he wanted, and this ended up getting him in trouble as he made several statements about young girls that were completely inappropriate. So let's get into this next article. This is called Girls Interrupted. This is from New York Magazine. This was from the year 2000, so 25 years ago. Again, another snapshot into how all this fits together. A little more than 10 years ago, Marie Anderson Boyd witnessed a prequel to the underage model scandal that has destabilized Elite, the world's largest modeling agency. So this was a thing. There was a huge scandal. Elite employees from around the world were meeting on the island of Ibiza. So this is almost like another Epstein Island, where the agency's owners, Alan Kittler, Gerald Marie, and John Casablancas, all had summer homes. Boyd was sunbathing behind a stone wall when her idol was interrupted by a loud argument. Uh, They were angrily pleading with Casablancas to stop sleeping with underage models, and they were having none of it. "We are men," snapped Marie. "We have our needs." "Go screw yourselves," the less polished Marie concluded. "Run your own life." Needless to say, the women lost the argument, and Anderson Boyd soon decided she'd had enough of Elite and quit her job. In the past 8 weeks, it's like Gerald Marie has wished he'd listened. In late November, he was the centerpiece of the BBC expose that rocked the modeling business. Marie was surreptitiously filmed making plans to seduce very young models and venting his frustration when those plans didn't work out. Other footage showed a drug sale to a teenager. Now, remember, it was after all this came out that Trump hired Casablancas to run his South American real estate empire. So it's like he didn't care that all this was happening. Documentaries, underage models, drugs. It didn't matter. And he still sent Ivanka to learn under this guy. Though personally not implicated by the BBC documentary, John Casablancas knows its landscape intimately. In the 80s, he was once the public face of Elite and another notorious admirer of young models. Casablancas threatened a lawsuit to stop it and attacked me at every turn when he couldn't. But now Casablancas has had a startling change of heart. Silence is no longer an option. Despite the flaws of the BBC film, which is at best disingenuous, if not dishonest, he acknowledges that it hits home. Sitting in his office near Gramercy Park, which is decorated in raw wood, Casablancas doesn't deny that he slept with teenage models. Wow. But insists, as he always has, that he's never knowingly made love to a girl under 16. Does all this sound familiar? You guys? Deny, deny, deny. At whatever cost. So I could go on and on with this. There's a lot of evidence about this. Here's another article. And this actually shows pictures of Trump with Casablancas. This one from The Guardian. Teen models, powerful men, and private dinners when Trump hosted Look of the Year. In the early 90s, Trump judged the world's biggest modeling competition. Since hit by allegations of abuse, this is how the people who were there remember it. This is from 2020. So, scores of teenage girls in evening dresses, miniskirts, some as young as 14, danced under disco lights. It could have been a high school prom were it not for the crowd of older men surrounding them. You guys, this is about as bad as it gets. As the evening wore on, some of the men, many old enough to be girls' fathers or even grandfathers, joined them on the dance floor, pressing themselves against the girls. One balding man in a suit wrapped his arms around two young models. This is tantamount to a modern day Andrew Tate. All legal, I guess, but this is about as creepy as it gets. Using your money and fame to be around a bunch of underage girls. And this is our president. How did all this get covered up? The party aboard the Spirit of New York was one of several events that Donald Trump, 45, attended with a group of 58 aspiring young models. They had traveled from around the world to compete in Elite Look of the Year competition, an annual event that had been running since '83 and was already credited with launching the careers of Cindy Crawford, Helena Christensen, and Stephanie Seymour. At stakes At stake was a life-changing prize, $150,000 contract with the world's then leading modeling agency, Elite Model. This is all the way to the top. This is why they don't want the Epstein files released. Trump was closely involved in Casablanca's competition. In '91, he was a headline sponsor, throwing open the Plaza, his lavish chateau-style hotel overlooking Central Park, transforming it into the main venue and accommodating the young models. He was also one of the 10 judges. In '92, Trump hosted the competition again on a similarly golden evening in early September that year. One of the girls on the boat was Shauna Lee, then a 14-year-old from a small town outside Toronto. She recalls how the contestants were encouraged to parade downstairs one by one and dance for Trump, Casablancas, and others. Now, the way Trump is getting around all this is he's going right back to the right left paradigm. He's saying that anyone that exposes this is a left wing lunatic, and he's already been accused of all these other things that he's beaten in court. And therefore, all this is false and fake, and people just trying to get money. Now, if you want to believe that, you go right ahead. I guess we get what we deserve. If people want to believe that line of thinking, the pictures are here. Wow. So, this was the world. This sounds more like Epstein than it does Trump, doesn't it? Here's Casablancas and Trump. This, of course, is Naomi Campbell. I believe that's Naomi Campbell. And Casablancas. Yes. Wow. Now, this is what's wrong with our, what do you call it? Our system. Our, because our judgment system, our judiciary hides the victims, hides the crimes for the rich. There are seals and things. They seal the cases. They erase things. They tell some of these victims, "Oh, we'll pay you out," but that means that it's sealed, so the public can't know. Well, then what's the point? So what if they pay some of these people off millions of dollars? The rest of us need to know the truth, especially when it goes all the way to the tops of governments. Now, I'll put a link to all this because this is turning my stomach. What turns my stomach more is that it's all been swept under the rug and these people are getting away with it. That's what turns my stomach more. So when you go down this rabbit hole, you begin to see the truth about all this. You begin to understand that all is not what it seems. Let me check in with you guys and we'll get into some of this other stuff today. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel as though there's a cover up? Do you feel as though Trump's being dishonest about all this? I mean, I don't think you can shake it any other way. Trump wasn't just some fly by night friend with Epstein and then separated himself because of what Epstein was doing, because Trump was doing the exact same stuff. He might not have been flying to Epstein Island, but there was other islands like Ibiza hanging around Casablancas, a known pedo, and you can't unsee this. You can't unsee this, and you can't explain it away. At least if there was an admission, at least if Trump said something like, look, I know what it looks like, but, everything was on the up and up, and I did everything legitimately. And yes, I saw some things going on with Casablancas and some of these people, and, it just really turned my stomach, and I just decided to not get involved in it. At least something like that. At least try to explain it to us. But we get nothing. We get zero. It's as if he's pretending as though it didn't happen. Now, the people that were around during that era, they all know. They all know the truth about what happened because apparently Trump was front and center in the middle of all this. Everybody knew who Epstein was. Everybody knew what Trump was doing. Everybody knew what Casablancas was doing. But for some reason, those Republicans won't stand up. Why? Because our government's compromised. And the rest of them that saw it are all liberals, and they're running for the hills because they're afraid of what Trump might do next. Some of these people, they're on the list that were liberals too. They were on the list, and they've all cut and run. They're all living in other countries now. You guys, it is a hot mess what's going on. Now, tomorrow, we are going to show you iPet Goat 2 is starting to manifest again. There's literally a video of Trump arresting Obama in the White House. I'll play that tomorrow, but let's finish up today's show here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's a Blacklist decode that we did. Let's see what the date is on this. 2 years ago. And in this, we're talking about some of the very same topics, the Lolita Express. And it's interesting how all this comes back full circle when no one else, people kind of stop talking about all that. Let's watch. And we're like, wow, God is amazing. He just connected that to that, and it really connects. And that's what we're going to talk about today as well. This series called The Blacklist. And in this series that came out in 2013, there were many, many disclosures of things that had not happened yet. So I want to get you guys caught up because I made it through another 5 episodes of the series. I'm all the way into 2014 now, the first part of 2014. And today, you're going to see episodes that disclose this recent story that we talked about of a pilot passing out and a plane crashing. Remember that? Well, it appears in an episode that I just looked at. Also, there's going to be more disclosure about who really runs the world. They just flat out tell you, that you're going to hear next, that it is the person in the White House does not matter. And now, remember, the truth of all this is discredited once it's fictionalized in a TV show. That's the sorcery behind this. They put things in fiction to discredit them. Now, let me give you an example because it's a little bit of a hard concept to wrap your brain around because you haven't thought through this process yet. Think back to when you were fast asleep and when someone tried to tell you the truth about something, the truth about the way our world works. And remember, when you were asleep, you would say, oh, you just saw that on a TV show. And you would look at the person if they're crazy because they pretty much described to you exactly what was appearing or had appeared on a TV show. Here's the problem. And this is why this channel is so important. Because in hindsight, when you look back in time, back through the timeline, the disclosure of specific events that had not happened yet, down to the very finest detail, they cannot be denied at that point. But there are very few people looking in hindsight, very few people scouring these television shows and movies from the past and linking them back to current events. So this is why this channel is important, because it connects the dots for people so they can see that all of this stuff is disclosed, and the reason why they disclose it is to fictionalize it, to make it not true in your mind. It almost is like covering their tracks. It's like walking through the snow and you're being pursued by someone and you're feverishly trying to wipe away your tracks as you're walking away and escaping from that person. Well, that's kind of the way this works. By fictionalizing it, they're wiping away their tracks.
Now, they can't get too specific, but they kind of have to in order for the psychological operation to work. Now, let's watch this first part here.
People think it matters who occupies that house. It doesn't. Multinational corporations and criminals run the world.
Multinational corporations and criminals run the world. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. Now, it hadn't mattered up until the MAGA sorcerer came into power, and probably a few presidents before that. I think Clinton was a big nothing sandwich. He didn't have any type of talent of sorcery. His talent was putting you to sleep, but he really didn't accomplish much. I mean, yes, he advanced the New World Order. The internet boom happened under Clinton, and he put everyone to sleep with his charisma. Obama probably was a reincarnated clone, not reincarnated, but reanimated clone of a pharaoh. So he had his own, he had the charisma as well. Bush, we all know the story with him. He was worked into the timeline all the way back in 1946 when he was born. And on the day of his birth and the year of his birth is when they established a World Trade Center board of directors. And the rest is history, because decades later, he would be the very president under which the towers would fall. So all these leaders have some kind of occult connection, okay? But I had never seen anything like what happened with Trump. All of the history and all that. We're going to talk about that today, because what you're going to see next, you're also going to see Epstein in this episode as well. Now, we just covered the real life story of a woman, the daughter of a billionaire Trump donor. And remember, she died on a private jet. Why? Because the pilot passed out, or so they say. They say that the cabin depressurized and the pilot passed out. They didn't say if the fighter jets could see the family through the windows, through the portal windows. I mean, they might have been closed. Who knows? But you would think that if the pilot passed out and the family was still alive in the back, because all these planes are supposed to have oxygen masks, right? It's the law. You would think that they would have the shades open and looking for help, right? That's what I would do. I wouldn't leave the shades closed if the plane was going down, right? So we had a story, and that story just broke 2 weeks ago. And yet here, all the way back in 2014, I'm going to show you almost the same exact scenario.
Who are you?
Your pilot. Better buckle up.
So we have the pilots incapacitated, the private jet going down, depressurized cabin. This seems eerily familiar, doesn't it? And it should, because this episode is called The Alchemist, and it aired on the eve of Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. The man who we believe would throw people out of private jets to dispose of his traffic victims. Remember that? This was the plane. The LOL Express, we'll call it. The Laugh Out Loud Express. And it was a Boeing 727. That's not actually the plane, but it was a 727. And these planes were one of very few that could be opened in mid-flight. The Boeing 727's rear door, or otherwise described as the rear ventral air stair, could be opened mid-flight. Unlike other doors on the 727, there were no mechanical preventative stopping the rear door from being opened while in flight, and say a passenger jumping from the plane. So, what is this Alchemist episode about? Well, it's about a criminal mastermind who could change people's identity by changing their DNA, their dental records. He even adds tattoos to the victims. What does he do? He swaps out the person who wants to change their identity with other people that are still alive. So essentially incapacitates them. He does all his work on the complete strangers, right? He finds people that match as closely as possible. Then he starts injecting them with the other person's DNA. He adds the tattoos. He basically makes these people look almost exactly like the people that are trying to change their identity. Sound familiar? Remember, this aired on the eve of Jeffrey Epstein's birthday. And many, many people are not quite sure what happened to him and his identity. Is this how he finally escaped judgment? Remember the prison photos on the gurney and it looked nothing like him? And people were comparing the ears and they did not match? Well, it was all scripted out in this episode. And if you were to watch this episode, you would see that exactly what probably happened with Epstein and changing his identity and putting a doppelganger in his place that looked exactly like him is maybe how he got out of it. Many of us think that Greasewell did the same thing. It doesn't look like the same person. And maybe there's a different person taking the fall. Literally, pun intended. Now, let's keep watching here. Because watch this.
So this isn't just evidence tampering, this is genetic manipulation.
Yes, even incorporating synthetic DNA into genuine human tissue. It's a trade in death.
They're children.
Kids shouldn't be reading Lolita.
What? Did you just hear that? Let me play it back for you.
They're children.
Kids shouldn't be reading Lolita.
Why not? I mean, that the heart goes where it wants to go.
Now, this episode was just a few episodes later. This was not the one that aired on the eve of Epstein's birthday, but it was just a few episodes later. Now, let me go back in and get your guys' reaction to what you just heard.
So there you go. I will put a link to that re-upload for those that are interested as we continue to make our way through some of these Blacklist re-uploads from a couple years ago. Really, I'm playing these Blacklist episodes back again because they were very, very underwatched. And I don't know why that is, but they were some of the most profound revelations on this channel was the Blacklist. And I did probably, I want to say almost 20 decodes on the Blacklist. There were 10 seasons. And now we're seeing how relevant all of this is. A lot of the Blacklist episodes were elements of Trump's presidency, his second presidency, which of course hadn't happened yet. They literally said Lolita in 2 episodes. I can't even believe it. Yeah, I try to speed up at least the re-uploads because we get through it faster. And also I tend to talk slowly and it really irritates some people. So, and if you're ever watching my channel and you feel like I'm talking too slowly, you can go into the frame of the video and speed it up. So, yeah. Okay, I'm in the chat here. I want to get your guys' reaction and then we'll kind of end the show, kind of wind the show down. I'll put links to all this. Now, tomorrow will be between the headlines. Also show you the AI Obama arrest video. Sure, everyone's going to be covering it today. It's top of the news. And other headlines, more Trump implosion. So, some of you like the speed. Appreciate that. Spiritual warfare. Yeah, everything is short clips now, and everyone's talking super fast on TikTok, and a lot of people, especially the younger generation, are used to that. And so if you're talking too slow, they just click off of it. It's too slow. So, all right. All right. Control me live. Well, if you get behind in the chat or if you get behind in the video, you can speed it up to catch yourself up to the rest of the chat. So that's a thing you can do too. I do that sometimes if I'm watching a live show and I come in late, I'll speed it up to get it caught up. Some of you watch everything at 2 times speed. Pretty much that's what I do too. Only because when I do watch content, I don't watch a lot of content because I'm too busy making our own content. But if I do watch other people's content, I will speed it up typically because that's how my brain works. You can speed up a live if you come in late to the live or if your live buffers. You can tell that because you'll see where it is in the play. It'll say live, but it'll be behind like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Or if you pause the live then you can catch yourself back up by putting it at 1.5 speed. 3 times sometimes. That's a little bit too fast. Then it sounds like the Chipmunks. Alvin, Simon, Theodore. Yeah, information overload, Shane. Absolutely, 100%. A lot. Now, the reason why we did the deep dive on Casablancas is because very few people are talking about that. The Casablancas connection is huge because the timeline shows Trump continuing his associations with a known pedo after the fact and giving him leadership roles in his organization. That should tell you everything you need to know. And the fact that Ivanka was sent to Casablancas. Let's look it up. Ivanka Trump, elite modeling. Let's see what year that happened. So the article, and he sent her to learn right under Casablancas too. It wasn't just that he sent her to his modeling agency. Ivanka Trump. Oh, here we go. Elite model. Let's see here. Elite. Okay, at 14 years old, 1996. So I guess that was a little bit before he was exposed. Casablancas was exposed. In all fairness, I don't want to do misinformation here because everything came out in like 2000, the Casablancas, but he was already doing and cringy things. And I don't know when they had that, when Trump was involved with the judging with him, but it was 2 or 3 consecutive years that he worked with Casablancas. So here you go. Wow. I'll put a link to this story as well. Creep factor. Okay. All right, you guys. Guess I'm going to pop off here. I'll see you tomorrow. I got all these stories for tomorrow. Same time, same place. Love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. Much love.